Dust pressed its hand against the prairie, flattening the horizon into copper and shadow, and the wind carried a taste of dust that felt old as sorrow. Jonas McGraw rode with his hat pulled low, the creak of saddle leather the only conversation left to him. He had to look a man pared down to silence, broad-backed, scarred across the jaw, his shoulders hunched against years no one else had chosen to bear. The land seemed to echo his quiet, a wide emptiness that remembered too much and offered too little. His horse stumbled, favoring its left foreleg. Jonas slid down, ran his palm along the fetlock, and found heat where there should have been none. The ridge ahead rose bare and stony, and at its base crouched a shack built from warped boards, leaning as though tired of its own standing. A thread of smoke crawled from a crooked pipe, faint as a prayer slipping away unheard. Jonas led the horse toward it, the animal limping, his own boots raising soft thuds that the open sky swallowed whole. The door opened before his knuckles found the wood. A girl stood there barefoot, hair tangled like wind-broken grass, eyes holding a strength that had no business belonging to someone so small. She couldn't have been more than 8, but her chin was lifted as though she had weighed men before and found most of them lacking. Behind her clung a boy, perhaps 5, thumb pressed silent against his mouth, half hidden in the folds of her faded dress. The girl's voice carried steady despite the fear that glimmered under it. "Are you here to hurt our mama too? She's dying." The words rooted him where he stood. He pulled his hat back, searching her eyes as though she were sheriff and judge together. "No," he said, and the single syllable came rough, scraped from disuse. "I'm here because my horse is hurt, but I won't leave you to it." She held his gaze for a long moment before stepping aside. The boy's fingers tightened on her dress, but he followed. Jonas ducked through the low frame. The shack breathed smoke, sickness, and boiled sage. On a straw pallet lay a woman, not much older than Jonas, her face sharpened by fever, beauty thin but not erased. Her eyes found her children first, then slid to him with a faint, bewildered searching. "Clara May," she whispered, lips cracked. "Tommy Lee." The girl hurried to kneel beside her mother, smoothing the rag on her brow with careful hands. The boy hovered near, desperate to vanish and unable to. Jonas crouched. The basin beside the pallet held stale water. He rinsed the rag, wrung it, and laid it cool on the woman's forehead. The children watched every move as though he might switch kindness to cruelty in a blink. "Name's Jonas," he said at last, because names sometimes built bridges where silence built walls. "I'll see to her for spell." The woman's voice scraped thin. "Martha Holloway. The fever, it squats heavy." Her eyes flicked to her children again. They got no one left. Jonas set another log on the coals, coaxing flame until it caught. The habit of tending fire steadied him. It was one of the few rituals that never betrayed. He broke bread from his saddlebag, laid a strip of jerky beside it. The boys stared as if food had become an unfamiliar sight. Jonas split the bread, set the larger piece between the children. Clara May tore a portion for her brother before touching any herself. Jonas felt something shift inside him at the sight, like a locked hinge creaking. The shack was quiet except for the cough of flame and the rasp of Martha's shallow breaths. Memories pressed on Jonas. Pew benches drawing away from him after his wife and stillborn child were buried, whispers that branded him cursed, the ache of being looked at only through the lens of pity or blame. He recognized the same shadow cast now over these children, the world's habit of condemning not for sins but for bloodline. He patched gaps in the roof with bits of canvas, tied with rawhide. Every small repair felt like a prayer spoken in the language of hands. When he finished, he sat back near the pallet. Clara May's eyes tracked him. "You got people?" she asked. "No." He said the word flat final. "You talk like you forgot," she murmured. "Maybe I did." Her hand stroked her brother's hair. "I remember for Tommy. When he's scared, I tell him about the bluebird in the fence post and the creek in spring. If you hold a memory hard enough, it can't fall so far." Jonas had no answer. The wisdom of children carried a sting sharper than scripture. Hooves broke the quiet. Jonas rose, went to the doorway. 3 horses stood in lantern light. Deputies slouched in their saddles. At their head, Deputy Rourke leaned forward, mustache waxed to cruel points. "Evening," he called, false warmth in his drawl. Word is Mrs. Holloway's unwell. That's inconvenient. Papers say her land defaults if she ain't fit to keep it. Property falls to the county, and these young uns, he smiled toward the doorway. There's trains that'll take them east. Fine homes, better futures. Jonas didn't move. It's night. You'll do your serving in daylight. Rourke's grin cut sharper. You ain't her kin. Not your concern. I'm what's here, Jonas said. The deputy's laughter rang against the shack like a jeer carved into wood. One man don't make a barricade. We'll be back come dawn with a wagon. Keep her comfortable till then. Might save us coffin wood. He tugged the reins, and the men rode off, leaving the night heavy with their promise. Inside, Martha shifted, fever dragging her toward shadows. She caught Jonas's wrist weakly. Don't let them take my babies. Her voice cracked on the last word, dissolving into cough. Jonas smoothed the cloth against her brow. He said nothing, but silence could carry a vow when shaped by the right weight. Through the night he tended fire, set water, sat still as the walls. The children curled near their mother, finally surrendering to sleep. Jonas's own eyes stayed open, drawn to every twitch of Martha's breath, as if watching it hold her here. But near dawn her chest eased once, then did not rise again. Peace gentled her features in death more than fever had in life. Jonas laid his rough palm across her eyes, closing them as though he had been ordained to this task. He dug the grave in the rise behind the shack, earth cool and damp, sage brushing his boots with silver leaves. Each stroke of the shovel became both burden and release. When the sun rose, pale fire cresting the ridge, Clara May came to the doorway, brother clinging at her side. She didn't cry. She watched with wide, steady eyes, then carried a tin cup of water out to him. She set it down without a word. Not gratitude, not surrender, but something that could grow into either. They buried Martha together. Jonas spoke plain over the grave, not from scripture but from the marrow of loss. You carried them as far as you could. I'll take the rest. The breeze caught the sage and bent it toward them, as if in witness. The clatter of wheels broke the quiet. Deputies returned, a wagon rattling behind them. Rourke dismounted, boots sinking in fresh-turned soil. Saved us labor, he said. His eyes shifted to the children, cold appraisal. Law's clear. They go on the train. You can ride back to your solitude. Jonas wiped her from his palms, stood straight. Jonas McGraw. The deputy smirked. Well, McGraw, move aside. Clara May's small hand clutched the sleeve. She didn't plead. She tested. Please, she said softly. Don't let them. Jonas looked down at her, then at Tommy's wide, unspoken stare. Something that had been locked inside him since the day he lost his wife cracked open. He stepped forward, turning himself into the doorway. No. Rourke's patience snapped thin. Ain't your kin. You want to argue with the law. Jonas slipped his coat from his shoulders, set across Tommy's small frame. I'm not arguing. I'm choosing. He lifted the boy onto his hip, held Clara May's hand firm. Law ain't here. I am. The deputy's men shifted uneasily. Villainy prefers shadows. Broad daylight makes cowards of it. Rourke spat dust. We'll talk again. Maybe with papers. Maybe with more guns. Bring them in daylight, Jonas said, and turned his back on them. He walked into the horizon with the children beside him, steady and unhurried, as though rightness itself walked at his pace. Behind them the deputies cursed, but no hand moved to stop him. To stand against mercy in plain view was to admit what kind of men they were. The creek bed opened into pale stone, sage whispering as the wind came up. Jonas crouched, drew a circle in the dust, showing the children where the horizon curved how far a day could carry. He didn't promise them ease, only his shadow walking with theirs. The girl gripped his hand tighter. The boy leaned against his chest, and for the first time in years Jonas felt the silence in him shift. It no longer pressed him down. It walked beside him. And if you're listening for what matters out here, it isn't the thunder of hooves or the crack of rifles. It's the smaller sound. The hush after man says no to cruelty. The breath of children who dare to trust. The faint rustle of sage when the world acknowledges decency. One day, Some will look at you with eyes too young to hold such grief and ask if you've come to hurt or to heal. The answer you give will root itself inside you, grow into a tree of shade or a thorn of regret. Choose daylight. Choose to stand. Because sometimes, in a land where law falters and gossip rules, the only justice left is the mercy a man carries in his hands.